Hello, I'm very excited and blessed today to have a wonderful guest. Her name is Beth on my podcast called A Legacy of Love. Thank you so much, Beth, for being here today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am too. I want to know a little bit about you, and obviously the audience would love to hear about you.
Okay. So it's always kind of hard. Where do you start? But I guess my story starts 24 years ago, almost, well, 26 years ago. I got married 24 years ago. Um, Almost exactly. My former anniversary date was August 12th. So almost exactly 24 years ago that I got married. But I was raised Old German Baptist Brethren. And if you don't know what that is, and most people don't, it is not Amish. It's a little bit similar to Amish, but you can look it up on Wikipedia. There's a really nice article about the Old German Baptist Brethren Church and explains their beliefs and different things like that. They are similar to Amish in that they wear a dress, a cape dress, and a little white covering. That it looks different than Amish, but it's a white covering that goes over their head. And the men wear a black hat or a straw hat and broadfalls.
Hmm.
So it's a different kind of jeans. But that's how I was raised. And so that gives you a little bit of a backstory to the story of my marriage. So in my marriage, I got married at 20, and um, I knew when we were dating there were things that made me uncomfortable, but I couldn't put it into words what those things were.
Hmm.
And he had said some things to me also that made me, just that icky feeling in your stomach, but you don't know why. When you're young, you don't necessarily understand these things, right? And so I had talked with my mother and said, I don't know why I feel this. I don't even really know what I feel. And she said, do you need to break up with him? And I said, well, I don't even know why I would breaking up. Like, can I break up with somebody because I just have a bad feeling? Like, I didn't, I didn't know. Um, so I married him, not knowing that he was a pornography addict.
Hmm.
And he had been since he was 12 years old. And over 21 years, I dealt with trickle disclosure. So a couple of years into the marriage, he told me that he was looking at pornography. Um, on our honeymoon, he had masturbated in front of me, which again was just gross, icky feelings. And I've, in my older years, I have been able to identify what those feelings were. And I've done a lot of healing around all of it. Um, but in that 21-year marriage, he raped me. I actually have a child that was conceived when he raped me one time. Um, and he was abusive in all of the different abusive ways, financially, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I say physically, but obviously with rape, it was sexual abuse. Um, and he was also abusive to our children. And we sought counsel, and he told the minister that it was my fault that he looked at pornography because I didn't want to have sex. And now looking back, I'm like, why was he not called out for looking at pornography? Why was I told I needed to have more sex to satisfy him? He should have been called out and said, no, dude, you need to fix your issues before she's going to want to have sex with you. But that's not the way things went. And I sought out counsel from older women and was told, no, just more sex, submit, um, honor your husband, respect your husband. And, I did all the things and nothing worked. It just, in some ways, it made it worse. Um, I have 5 children from that marriage. The oldest one is 23 and the youngest one is 11. And I'm very, very grateful and thankful for my children, but I'm really sad about the circumstances that they were born into and the dysfunctional family that they were born into.
Yes, most definitely, because it took a big toll on you, and you had to deal with his problems and his addictions. And honestly, it's very sad that you were willing to find the way to make it work in the midst of you not feeling well, not, being able to understand what was really going on. And it was not your fault. It was not up to you, Beth, to make the changes. And that advice and that counsel that you were seeking was not what you truly needed, and it was not the right path. He needed to recognize that he had a problem. It was not you. It was not in your hands to fix his problems. And I definitely I understand you, and I feel sorry that you went through that. But as women, we need to stand up, and we need to speak up and to have a voice. I also went through a relationship like that, and it was not easy to come to terms with it not being my fault. I could understand that most likely you probably had questions. What am I not doing right? Why? What is it that I could do better? It was all placed on your plate without him recognizing, and he was putting all the blame on you. And it was not up to you. He had to be his best version. He had to come clean with you when he was dating you. And those red flags that I mention a lot on my book and also on my workbook um, are a way for you to know there's something wrong, even though you might not understand that. As I'm listening to you, I could see that I could hear it, that there were some red flags, but you just couldn't connect the dots, but you knew that something was wrong. Am I correct?
Right, right. I knew that something was wrong. I knew that something was off, but I didn't know what it was.
Yes.
Um, and my parents blame themselves, but I've told them we didn't know 24 years ago that we needed to ask about pornography. Now we know it. Now I'm working to educate parents. You need to be asking these really serious, hard, uncomfortable questions of the young men and young women that your children want to date, because there's no reason for anyone to live a life this way in today's day and age. We know pornography is an epidemic in our country, especially. And so we need to be protecting our children. But we didn't know that back when I was 20 years old. We didn't know we needed to ask those questions.
No, and
I
it was something that was very quiet. It was kept in secrecy, I believe.
Mhm.
We were not allowed to really talk much about that. Keep that on the side and pretend it's not really happening, even though it was happening. But I think that now, these new times, people are willing to talk about this openly. That's what I see.
Well, people are willing to talk about it openly, and also it's more openly, widely known. We all
Yes.
know it exists on the internet.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's in the movies, it's in songs, it's very in our faces now. Whereas, especially in where I grew up, we didn't have radio and TV, so we were more sheltered from everything. My parents' home did not have a TV. My dad is not a member of the Old German Baptist Brethren Church. My mother is, but there wasn't a TV in the home until after I had left home. And so, none of that was in my face. None of it was something that I ever saw or dealt with to know that there could be a problem with it.
Hmm. What would you tell a lady right now if they were listening right now and they're, you know, that they have that feeling inside of, there's something wrong in my relationship. And most likely they're being abused somehow. And there's so many different layers of abuse, like you said, and I know about that. There's so many physically, emotionally, psychologically, financial, with money and all. There's so many. what would you tell somebody that might be experiencing this and they're not quite sure what to do, how to handle it?
One of the first things I would say, if they have that like sense, that sixth sense, something is off, I would say check in with yourself. Sit down and say, when do I feel this? Why do I feel this? What causes me to feel this? And if they are people of faith, ask the Holy Spirit to show you what is going on. Um, and the second thing that I would tell them would be to um, build support systems. Don't don't hide it. Talk to someone. It wasn't until the last 5, 6 years that I realized that marital rape is actually a thing.
Wow.
I knew that rape was something, but I didn't realize that marital rape was actually something. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, that's what happened to me. I just didn't, because I was taught and, I was told by everybody, just give your husband more sex, just give your husband more sex. And so I didn't realize that you could actually be raped inside of your own marriage.
Yes.
So for me, that was a real eye opener. And maybe for someone listening to your podcast, they'll be like, oh my goodness, that's what's happened to me too. Um, so build your support systems, people that you can trust, friends, family. Sometimes it ends up being strangers that become friends and family that build your support systems. But those support systems have been vital in my healing and recovery. Everywhere from bringing meals to taking care of children to sitting and crying with me to asking me tough questions to make me think to reminding me what I've been through, saying, if I ever say, well, it really wasn't that bad, was it? They're like, Beth, do you remember telling me? And I'm like, oh, yeah. Because as humans, somehow we forget.
We
We do.
do.
We forget and we think, oh, it really wasn't that bad. I'm making too much of a big deal out of it. But in actuality, it was that bad and worse.
Yes. How were
Um,
you able to come out of that? How, because it was a 21-year period. How did you realize and how did you wake up? Because that's what happened to me. One day I realized this is not what was intended in a marriage. I know that this is wrong. I did my research. I cried my eyes out. I'm like you. I come also from a background where your family always tells you the same things, that you have to continue working on it harder. You have to maintain that marriage. Whatever sacrifice you have to do, well, you're going to have to do it. Most likely, there's certain conversations that they never will take place with your family and yourself. I totally get it. That I don't think that they would have talked to me about, oh, well, give them more sex, but I think that they would have found a way to infer on that in a way for me to understand that. But what was it that broke the ice, or how was it that you realized I cannot continue in this marriage? What happened?
well, survival mode. I lived so many years not being present with my children in their childhood. There's a lot that I don't remember, and that makes me very sad. Um, but what really, I was seeing behaviors in my children that disturbed me. And what really was the catalyst for waking me up and kind of moving everything in the direction that it is currently is one morning I woke up and I asked him directly, are you still looking at pornography? And he got really, really quiet and he said, yes. And I said, you need to move out. And he didn't take me serious. But in a few days, I followed up and I said, have you gotten somewhere else to live? And he's like, no. And I said, I was serious. You need to move out. And so he did. But I didn't have support systems. I didn't have people around me to speak into my life and speak into me and say, yes, this is the right thing. In fact, I had people that were telling me I was wrong. I was hurting my children. I was hurting our fellowship, and I needed to have my husband come back home. And so I did. I allowed him to come back home. But that separation really sparked a fire in myself that things had to be different because I started really healing in that time that we were separated. It was like 4 or 5 months, and I started to really heal. And I we ended up having separate bedrooms for a while, for several years. And then he choked our oldest son to the point of blackout. And that time I said, you need to move out again, and you're not coming home until you've had serious, serious help. And he never came back home. And we are now divorced.
Hmm. Yes, most definitely that needed to end. And it was, like you said, a pattern, a cycle of the same. He was not willing to change. And he was showing that to you. He was letting you, be aware, I assume, whether you were present or not, but he was probably giving you insights that he was still doing those things. And there has to be red flags there, whether he would want to be private in certain areas of the house, or he would watch it while you were present, or, and also I would really touch me right now of what you're saying is that you recognize that this was also affecting your children. And this is, if this wouldn't have ended, it was going to eventually continue. And I'm not saying that all your children, but those patterns and those behaviors, they watch that. They're you seeing that they're very observant. They're growing. They're like little sponges. So they also will, want to model and learn from the father, the mother, whatever, behaviors, and they'll also become part of that.
Right.
And you definitely don't want that for your children. And I'm like very proud that you actually stood up and you said, no more. I need you to leave. And I definitely understand. And I'm like glad that you actually did that. If there's someone right now that's listening, how could they actually contact you? Where would they actually be able to contact you? If they're actually going through something like this, like you did, and they want to have, tips or advice, or sometimes it's not easy to talk to other people, but if they feel comfortable enough reaching out to you or even to me, we're more than happy to advise you in the area, because we do know about this and we have experienced it personally. How could they reach out to you?
So I am on Instagram and Facebook as Beth Brunk Coaching, BRUNK. So BETHBRUNK Coaching. Also coach@bethbrunk.com is my email, and website is bethbrunk.podia.com.
Wow. Okay. And for me, if you, whoever's here and is listening, as you know, I'm an author as well. And you could look at and find me on Instagram as well, author Analee Vizcarra Vinyard. I like to carry also my maiden last name because I'm also Hispanic. So it's Vizcarra and Vineyard without the E, Vinyard. Or also on my Facebook, it's the same author. And on my website, that's AnaleeVineyard.com. You can leave me a message there and I will respond. We definitely would love to hear from you. And what would be the last, or what would be the last part of this message today that you would love to leave for these ladies, or even men, because men also go through abuse. It's not only women. Sadly, it happens both ways.
Yes. Yes, sadly it does. One thing that I would leave with them today is you're not alone. Unfortunately, there are a lot of us out here, and there is help, there is hope. And if you are a person of faith, hold on to that, because he shows up. He shows up in massive ways that you never expect.
Yeah, I definitely believe in that too. I think that, as I share in my book, A Legacy of Love, there have been baby steps. But if it was, God, I'm here today because of Christ. I lost my mother when I was just going to be 15, shy a couple of weeks of being 15. And after that, I went through so many things. Between that, arranged marriage, um, loss of my first unborn child. And I'm so grateful that my mother taught me of Christ before she passed. I don't think I would be here if it wasn't because of what she taught me at a very young age. to always seek the Lord, to continue pushing, to continue believing that things will get better. It's just the season. Eventually, that season will pass and you will see the light. And the light is the Lord. You
Mm.
should not be identified or by people to identify you like, oh, you're that person of that past of what you went through. No, you should have your identity established in the Lord as a daughter, as a son in Christ. That's how we should all recognize who we really are. That's where our identity is in Christ. Um, and if you do not know the Lord, I invite you to open your heart. I invite you, I encourage you today, as we're closing today, this session, to allow him to come into your life, and you will see wonderful things. There will be a transformation, restoration. You will be able to fulfill your purpose on earth. Whatever that purpose is, there is an amazing purpose, and it's in God's hands. Allow him to come into your life, and you will see amazing things happening to you and to your life and to those people that are around you. So thank you for coming here today, Beth. I'm really thankful that you're here. And I love the fact that you also, as I do, carry the love for Christ. I believe that that's the only way, and
Yeah.
he is the only way. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming here today.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this.
Yes, I did too.